Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and today it's time to bow down to the true Empress of Begnion. Today we take a look at the child apostle, everyone's favorite little fireball, Sanaki.
You stand in the presence of Sanaki, Empress of Begnion.
Sanaki is the Apostle of Begnion, a descendant from a long line of Begnion empresses stemming from Altina, one of Ashera's 3 heroes. The Apostle is a sort of divine ruler of the theocracy of Begnion, capable of hearing the voice of Ashera, and this gift is passed down through a sacred bloodline from one generation to the next. At some point, Sanaki had an older sister who got separated from her. This proved to be a problem, as the gift of hearing the voice of Ashera was only passed down to the firstborn in the line of succession, meaning Sanaki herself was incapable of hearing the voice, thus effectively making her a false apostle. Sanaki was not aware of this at first, however. She simply thought it took a long time before the goddess started speaking to her. When Sanaki was just 5 years old, her grandmother, Misaha, the former apostle, was assassinated. She was adored by the populace and was also the person responsible for ending the Begnion Laguz slave trade. In reality, however, it was the Begnion Senate under Senator Lekain who was responsible for her death, but they blamed it on the herons of Serenus Forest, sparking the infamous Serenus Massacre, where angry mobs of Begnion citizens set the forest ablaze, almost wiping out the entire heron race. After successfully using the herons as the scapegoats for their murder, the Begnion Senate then sought to install Sanaki as a puppet emperor. However, as Sanaki was placed under the guardianship of Sephiron, Prime Minister of Begnion, the two of them somewhat resisted the influence of the Senate and were able to rule without them taking complete control. Many years later, when King Ashnard of Dane managed to invade Crimea and killing off the royal family, Princess Alincia, under the care of Ike and the Grail mercenaries, fled via sea to Begnion to seek aid from the Apostle. Sanaki met Ike for the first time aboard a ship outside the Begnion borders after a pirate attack that the Grail mercenaries helped rout had almost taken the Apostle's life. Ike mistook Sanaki for a regular girl and attempted to help her. Sanaki kept silent to see what kind of person he was, but she quickly lost her temper when Ike grabbed her and attempted to treat her sprained ankle, revealing to Ike and the rest of the mercenaries that she was in fact the Empress of Begnion. While they didn't believe her at first, Sanaki's story was confirmed when her royal guards, Sigrun and Tanith, showed up to confirm her identity. Back in Begnion, Sanaki held a formal meeting with Ike, Alincia, and the rest of the Begnion senates. However, in secret, she prepared a ruse to test them. She acted cold and uncaring, even going as far as to make fun of Alincia and taunting her, saying that she didn't believe she was really the princess of Crimea, but just some commoner pretending. When Ike lost his temper and snapped at Sanaki, something which would have been punishable by death normally, Sanaki told him that Sephiron, the Prime Minister of Begnion, who Ike and the rest of the Grail mercenaries had by accident rescued from a prison in the past, had already vouched for Alincia's identity. While Sanaki's actions made her look cruel and uncompassionate, this was all a test to see what kind of people Ike and Alincia really were. Once Sanaki had established that Ike was a man of character who could be trusted, she hired the Grail mercenaries on the spot for a mysterious mission, to go out and capture some thieves on the outskirts of the Begnion border. At first, Ike didn't realize why Sanaki needed his mercenaries for this task, seeing as she was the empress of a nation with one of the strongest armies on the continent, but after a while, it all became clear. Sanaki sent the Grail mercenaries out so that they would discover the horrifying truth of the Begnion Laguz slave trade with their own eyes, but she didn't want the senators to know what she was plotting, since so many of them were involved in the slave trade itself. After the Grail mercenaries successfully completed their first mission, Sanaki then immediately sent them on another one. This time they were to investigate the Duke of Tanas, Oliver, who lived near Serenus Forests. Upon reaching the mansion, the Grail mercenaries found that Oliver had bought Raisin, a heron, and was keeping him as a slave pet. After taking out Oliver and his men, and thus exposing that a Begnion senator was involved in illegal Laguz slave trade, they also miraculously encountered Raisin's lost sister, Liane, who had somehow survived on her own in the forest for all these years. Upon seeing the two herons, Sanaki appeared in front of them, and to everyone's shock, she fell to her knees and begged their forgiveness. Sanaki was aware that the herons were not responsible for the assassination of her grandmother, but she was also helpless to stop the massacre. While Rayson was unwilling to forgive the people of Begnion, Leanne immediately listened to her and convinced her brother to soften his heart. Afterwards, the two herons performed the Galder of Rebirth, healing the damaged forest and restoring it to life once more. As a reward for Ike's assistance in mending the wounds of the past, as well as to help her uncover the corruption within her own senate, Sanaki offered the Crimean army her full support, granting Ike soldiers as well as imparting noble status onto him, allowing Ike to lead the newly formed Crimean Liberation Army. With this army, Ike charged into the heart of Dane and managed to retake his homeland of Crimea, as well as deposing of the Mad King Ashnard. In many ways, Sanaki was directly responsible for Ike's victory. Many years later, trouble would arise once again as the Begnion Senate kept growing in power, slowly day by day acquiring more control over the empire. After making the decision to murder envoys from Gallia, who were sent to Begnion to investigate the truth behind the burning of Serenus Forest, the newly formed Laguz Alliance declared war on the empire. Sanaki, however, found herself getting increasingly more troubled by the day. She was now 13 years old, but was still unable to hear the voice of the goddess Ashera, and thus started to doubt her position as the apostle. One of the senators, Lekain, revealed to Sanaki that she once had an older sister who now was lost. The Senate then took complete control over Begnion as they proclaimed Sanaki to be a false apostle, forcing her to flee the city for her own safety. Once she was outside the Begnion borders, she sought out her old allies, Ike and the Grail mercenaries, who was currently assisting the Laguz Alliance in their war against Begnion. The war, which ensued as a result of Begnion's actions, ravaged Talius and awakened the goddess of order, Ashera, who cast her judgment on the people for breaking their promise to her, turning them all into stone statues, save a select few which she spared. Sanaki was part of the Silver Army whose objective was to march to the Tower of Guidance to confront the goddess, Ashera herself, and try to lift the curse. During this time, Sanaki finally got to meet her older sister, which she was separated from at birth, and this sister was Micaiah. While Sanaki at first felt very ashamed, since this meant she wasn't the real apostle, and thus her entire life had in many ways been a lie, she immediately took a liking to her older sister and bonded with her, even after realizing that this meant Micaiah was in fact the real apostle of Begnion, and therefore could replace her. After the Silver Army reached Begnion and made their way up the tower, Sanaki encountered her old guardian, Sephiron, who revealed that he was responsible for the entire war, and also revealed his true identity, Leron, the 1,000-year-old heron of legend who assisted the three heroes in their fight against the dark god Yuna. Sickened by the Serenus massacre, Leron had lost all hope in humanity and orchestrated everything to forcefully awaken Ashera from her slumber so that she could pass her judgment on the world, which he viewed as corrupt and irredeemable. Sanaki was heartbroken when she learned that her guardian was the man behind all of this evil, and in a final conflict, Sephiron was slain by Ike, Micaiah, and the rest of their companions. However, right as he was about to die, Micaiah healed him with her special gift and brought him back from death's door. Realizing the error of his ways, Leron joined them in their fight against Ashera. As the goddess fell, her curse was lifted, and peace was restored to the world.
Sanaki is a polite young girl who is very concerned with manners and speaking formally. This collides quite heavily with Ike's casual way of addressing nobles the same way he does commoners, which initially puts her off. Sanaki might give off the first impression that she is a spoiled, arrogant child, but in reality she harbors great sympathy and is a very caring individual. While Sanaki gives the impression of being calm and collected, her young age sometimes catches up to her, as she is prone to spontaneous outbursts of emotion, befitting a girl of her age. However, she is also shown to possess vision beyond her years, as she cleverly sends Ike and his companions on missions to let them see the evil within her own empire with their own eyes, so that she can enlist their aid without drawing the ire of the Senate or the public. In steep contrast to the rest of the Begnion nobility, Sanaki shows a deep sympathy for Laguz, in particular the Herons, going so far as to fall on her knees in front of Rayson and Liane to beg for their forgiveness on behalf of her people's terrible treatment of their kind. Sanaki's warmth towards Laguz clearly stems from being raised by Sephiron, who shows a lot of anger and outrage over Laguz being domesticated and treated worse than livestock by the Begnion nobility. While not playable in Path of Radiance, Sanaki still has an unused battle model with animations in the game's files. Path of Radiance also features unused official artwork of Sanaki as an adult. The Falconites in Sanaki's Spot Pass team in Awakening represent her Holy Guard, Sigrun, Tanith, and Marcia. Sanaki's English voice actor, Erin Fitzgerald, voices Emerin in Awakening, as well as Olwen in Heroes.
The truth is, I cannot hear the goddess's voice.
After the Great War, Micaiah, who was in reality the true apostle, decided to let Sanaki rule Begnion in her place. Sanaki, however, cast aside the title as apostle and instead decided to rule Begnion as empress, guiding her people in a world without the word of the goddess. Her guardians, Sigrun and Tanith, continued to watch over her. Sanaki apparently was a fine ruler and made many treaties which helped unite the continent after the catastrophic times.
You may have the great honor of remaining at my side.
Sanaki is a bit of a weird unit. Many like to define her as an Est archetype, but keep in mind that Empress is a third-tier class, so experience-wise, she may not be that far behind the rest of your team. Offensively, Sanaki's pretty much the definition of a very slow glass cannon. 33 magic is very impressive, and she can output a lot of damage from the moment she joins. 23 speed, however, is sadly terrible at this point during the game, not to mention her speed cap of 32 is also pitifully low. On top of this, her strength of 2 will make her weighed down even further by heavy fire tomes, so doubling with Sanaki is going to be borderline impossible unless you give her stat boosters and battle experience, and even then it might not even be enough. Sanaki's survivability is simply put plain awful. 28 hit points and 10 defense is downright Micaiah tier. From the first map she joins, there are many enemies capable of outright one-shotting her, though most of them will just leave her really low after landing a hit. While she might survive a stray javelin or two, her survivability will be extremely shaky. Her high luck does allow her some decent avoidance, which can be boosted further by a good supporting partner with the Earth affinity, but usually it's best to keep her far away from enemy range. Giving Sanaki an Angelic Robe is probably not going to change the fact that she gets two-shotted by almost everything in the game at this point, but it might put her out of range of getting one-shot by certain enemies, so it might be worth it if you plan on using her. Being an Est archetype, Sanaki's growth rates are high by Radiant Dawn standards. She has fantastic hit points, magic, skill, luck and resistance, but average speed and defense. Her speed growth of 35% in particular means that even giving her many levels won't solve her doubling issues. She does on the other hand have a remarkably high strength growth of 40% for a magic user, meaning that after a few levels the speed penalty from wielding tomes will be somewhat lessened, but this usually only helps prevent Sanaki herself from being doubled, not the other way around. Sanaki's Empress class is very similar to that of an Archsage, only that she trades staff utility for access to all sorts of magic types aside from dark magic, though she can only get the SS rank in fire. Sanaki does get access to the Archsage class skill Flare, however, which will usually slay most enemies outright when it procs and heal Sanaki to full. The healing portion of Flare is nice, but it's not something you can rely on, and it matters little if Sanaki heals herself to full only for her to get one-shotted by the next enemy she faces. Sanaki comes with her own personal tome, the Cymbeline. This tome has fantastic accuracy, high might, and even a very generous crit rates. In terms of raw power, it is only surpassed by the Rex Flame tome, but for Sanaki, the Cymbeline will probably be the superior of the two, considering it only weighs 5 compared to Rex Flame's 13, which will completely cripple her speed to the point where she will get doubled by regular enemies. With its 45 uses, the Cymbeline will usually last you through the endgame, so use it to your heart's content. While the Cymbeline is a decent tome, Sanaki's arguably at her most powerful with a ranged siege tome like the Meteor. While the Meteor tome is limited to 5 uses, it can be blessed in the Tower of Guidance to gain unlimited durability, though some people prefer to bless a bolting tome instead, since thunder magic is super effective against Dragonkin, something you will face a lot of when you go up against the Ginsia and his minions. Since Sanaki is unable to double anyway with her pitiful speed stat, she can instead function as a long-range artillery, picking off enemies from afar without ever having to enter close range. As far as skills are concerned, Paragon is obviously a skill that will help Sanaki get going a lot faster. With her high growth rates, giving her a few extra levels before entering the tower will certainly help her out quite a bit, and Paragon's double experience rate will greatly accelerate this. Shade is a very useful skill since you really want Sanaki to be targeted as little as possible due to her extreme frailness. If you really want to play it safe, however, you can instead opt to give her the improved version, Stillness, which guarantees enemies will never attack her as long as other units are within their range. However, Stillness does take up 25 capacity as opposed to Shade's 10, so if you do this, she won't be getting any other skills aside from her flare, but it does allow you to have Sanaki on the front lines with few worries about her positioning. Lastly, if you want Sanaki to wield the Rex Flame in the tower, consider giving her the Discipline skill, as getting the SS rank requires an extraordinary amount of attacks, and considering Sanaki seldom doubles, this might take you a very long while, so Discipline would really help out in this regard. Sanaki is a fantastically well-written character that really left a positive impression on me after my first playthrough of both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. While her introduction to the story really shows her being arrogant and cruel, giving you the impression that she's some spoiled child ruler that doesn't deserve her position, similar to other characters in popular mainstream fiction, Sanaki later reveals her true nature. To me, her falling on her knees in front of the Herons of Serenus Forests, completely dropping all of her authority in order to beg for their forgiveness, was the crowning moment that really made me like her as a character. Sanaki is the ultimate way to really write a likable character in a position of authority. The game originally tricks you into judging her prematurely based on cliches, only to turn it around on you when you least expect it. While Sanaki is extremely mature for her age, she also has her childlike outbursts of emotion that remind you that she's still a 10-year-old girl, which in turn reminds you of just how impressive she is for her age. Overall, I think Sanaki may be one of the best written characters in the Tell You series, making me rate her 5 out of 5 stars. As the Empress of Begnion, Sanaki's design reflects power, wealth, and authority. She both looks and behaves like that of an empress, despite her small stature and young age. Her clothes are absolutely fantastic, and really fulfill the task of making a small girl appear powerful and foreboding. She easily has one of the most memorable designs of the Tell You series, and I rate her 4 out of 5 stars. Sanaki is only playable in the endgame of Radiant Dawn and comes in as an S-type unit with weak bases and high growth rates. Still, as with most other S archetypes, I find Sanaki's utility to be pretty horrendous. While she certainly hits hard, her laughable survivability and inability to wield staves really hurt her as a unit. It's not that Sanaki can't become viable with the proper training and skills, it's just that in the endgame of Radiant Dawn you should already have several well-trained magic users who should be better. Sure, the Cymbeline is good, but a well-trained Khalil with the Rex Flame, Soren with the Rexcalibur, or Ileana with the Rexbolt can all compete with her offensively and might even be able to double attack, wield staves, and take a few hits without dying. At the end of the day, Sanaki doesn't really bring anything unique to the table, aside from a somewhat high magic stat, and is in my opinion, not a very good unit. 2 out of 5 stars.
What treachery! I won't tolerate this!
Thank you so much for watching this Fire Emblem character spotlight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider helping out this video with a like, and let me know what character you want to see me feature in a future spotlight by leaving a comment below.
I would like to give a special thank you to Gnarf Ledarf, who requested this spotlight of Sanaki alongside this drawing as his silver tier Patreon reward. By becoming a silver tier patron yourself, you too can request a spotlight and a drawing of your choosing.
Before we end this video, I want to give a massive shout out to my amazing Patreon supporters. You guys are the best and I really appreciate each and every one of you. You make it possible for me to produce all this Fire Emblem content for you all on a daily basis, especially now that YouTube is demonetizing videos left, right and center for seemingly no reason at all. If you become a Patreon supporter today, you get instant access to my Patreon-only Discord chat, the ability to participate in Patreon hangouts, and ask questions from my Patreon Q&A videos. Also, if you become a silver tier Patreon, you can request your very own Fire Emblem character spotlight, alongside a drawing of your favorite Fire Emblem character done personally by my designer. You can check out our Instagram or Facebook page by clicking the link in the video description to see some of the work she's done previously. She is extremely talented. Also, my two script readers, Sonagi and Heliasan, help me with the fine-tuning of the script of the spotlight, along with Mecha, who also assists with correcting errors and mistakes. Anyway, that's all for now. If you want to see more spotlights, check out the playlist linked in front of you. There's also another direct link which will take you to the previous spotlight I did. Anyway, my name is Mangs. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. You are a true fan. Don't forget to leave that like, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.